Greetings, wonderful humans, and welcome back to Board Game Dads with another board game holiday spotlight and a new first here on Board Game Dads, a new first time guest. Very excited for our very special guest today. Special guest, please introduce yourself.
Hey, everybody. My name is Matthew or Melissa Makak. Thank you so much, Anthony, for having me on here. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I gave Melissa a list of possible holidays to talk about, and we narrowed it down to this one. I'm glad someone picked this. Mostly because one of my picks I really wanted to talk about because I want to get that game to the table. I kind of miss it. More on that later.
Cool.
But before that, a little bit of history about this holiday. And again, I'm not sure where it really started. It is July 7th, I can tell you that much. Um, some of the most famous lies in history or lying characters in history. Melissa, you have any stabs at what those might be? What comes to mind?
Like fictional characters?
Either or. Either or. I have an
Oh.
example of each.
Oh, snap. Okay. Oh man, a lying character. I don't know. Maybe.
I'll give you a hint. One of them was a president.
I don't want to get political.
No, no,
Uh, okay,
no.
well I'm gonna go with Nixon.
No, no. Wait, sorry. So far back that it almost becomes like not
Okay.
political, more like more like mythological. I'm talking about George Washington with the cherry
Oh,
tree.
okay. Okay.
No, 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 no. And then again, there's no proof of that. It's been like a story that I guess has been passed down. But anyway,
Okay.
allegedly he cut it down, cut his father's cherry tree, and then told him later out of guilt. I don't know. Most famous fictional lying character, and not like evil lying,
Oh.
just consequential lying,
Um,
and in the Disney realm.
in the Disney realm. Okay. I had a feeling it was in the Disney realm, but I wasn't sure like who it would be.
So this
Yeah.
movie came out in 1940. So it's an
Oh,
old Disney
so
character that has been reimagined in all, I think, all of the Shrek movies as well as like a side character.
really? Wow. I
That,
don't know.
that, that narrows it down.
I'm thinking of some sort of character in Snow White. I don't know.
Okay, yeah, a little bit later than that, but it's Pinocchio. So Pinocchio's
Oh,
nose would grow
dang it.
every time he
I should have
lied.
known that.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. So there's that. And then one other interesting fact here I found was that the first polygraph was invented back in 1925 in collaboration between some psychologist and a police sergeant or something like that. So I
Oh,
thought that was
cool.
interesting. So you never lied, correct?
Me? No, of course not.
Right. No, of course not. Have you ever heard of or seen the movie called The Invention of Lying?
No, I haven't.
It's a great, basically a rom-com. It's Ricky Gervais and I think Jennifer Garner is the female lead in that. And basically, it's this alternate universe where nobody lies. Like nobody even knows that it's a thing to lie. So,
Oh.
everyone just always tells the truth, as blunt as it may be, to the point where Ricky Gervais goes up to this character and try to like talk to her, whatever, and she's like, you're short, ugly, and make no money. I would never be interested in you. But she says it in like so matter of factly because that's the way they talk. So he gets fired from his job. He works at like a movie company. He makes films, but
Okay.
because there's no lying in this universe, there's no such thing as fiction. So
Oh.
all the films are just historical documentaries, and they're like really, really boring. And he's like the 14th century guy, so his movies like suck. And so he gets fired from the job. He goes to pay his rent or whatever. So he goes to the bank, and the teller says that all the computers in the bank are down. So just tell me how much money it is that you have in your account, and I'll give it to you. And so he pauses for a moment and does the very first lie ever in this universe and says
Oh.
some ridiculous amount of money. I forget what it was. And obviously there's more to it than that. But he gets all this money, and then he's like still unattractive in the eyes of Jennifer Garner. But eventually they come to find true love, and he does all these cool things. There's a great scene where he basically introduces the folks to the Ten Commandments in sorts. And
Okay, I
it's one
see.
of those scenes where it's like 5 hours later, and he's still answering questions about what's bad and what's good. And so if you've never seen that one, it's a hidden gem, The Invention of Lying. Go check that one out if you like Ricky Gervais.
Yeah, I
He's
will
fun.
check that out.
On to some game picks here. Before we get to the main picks, I don't know that I have any honorable mentions, although I probably could think of one, but I don't know. Do you have any that you were kind of like on your short list?
I don't think so. I think the ones that would have been on my short list, like you're going to talk about. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Well, so there's lots of games that you are encouraged to lie, but there's fewer games where you don't have to lie to necessarily win or do well. And I think a lot of
right.
our picks are sort of on track with that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and let Matthew take the first pick here. See if I can remember how to do this so we can all see what it is. There we go. All right, first pick.
Yeah, so this is Coup. Coup is a straight up bluffing game where you have two cards in your hand and you are trying to. They each have certain abilities, each of these characters in the game, and you could pretend to be whomever, right? You could pretend as though you have like the assassin card in your hand, even though you don't. And somebody could call you out on your bluff, and if they're right, you have to discard a card. But if they're wrong, they've got to discard a card. And once you've lost all two of your cards, you're out of the game. So it's sort of a last person standing
Mm,
type of deal, but you're trying to get money in the game and you're trying to do coups against other people or assassinate them, which, you know, could also knock them out of the game, but you could also block people by saying, like, yeah, I'm the Cortesa or whatever.
so these are the
Even,
only
yeah.
five characters in the game. What's up here?
I believe that that is true. Although
Okay.
I think there's an expansion that adds a
Okay.
couple more characters, but I only have the base game, so yes. These are the only characters in the game. You get this little player aid. It tells you all the characters that there are, what they can do, and then you just take whatever ability essentially that you want, saying like, "Yes, I have that card," and somebody could call you out on the bluff, or you could be telling the truth.
Right.
So that's how it essentially plays.
How do you find that you fare in this game and these types of games? Because I feel like I can never keep it together. and, and sometimes like when I'm supposed to know what's going on, like if I'm supposed to know the plan, I don't usually know the plan. I'm just not quick like that.
Yeah, I freak out a little bit internally,
Okay.
but I would say I'm okay at these games. I'm not too bad, although once I start playing with the same groups of people over and over, they kind of catch on to my giveaways, I guess.
That's a good
So,
point. That's a good point. I only played this game once. I think we played it more than once that night, but
mhm,
it's been a quite a while since then. And the people that
uh-huh,
I played with were a combination of my close friends and then my sort of, you know, extra friends group of friends, right, who also
uh-huh.
happen to like games, and it was sort of the first time that they came together.
Yeah, cool.
And you definitely heard some like language that was different than you were used to hearing, and these, just because these people you don't know are both interacting with each other in a way
Hmm.
that they are used to, but now they're
Hmm.
interacting with new people, and it threw me for a loop. I had no clue what was going on whatsoever.
Yeah, I feel like if you're playing this game with people you don't know, yeah, I would probably feel the same way.
Yeah, so I think that's why my impression of this game was like kind of so-so. I
Okay.
never really rushed to play it again, but we'll see. Maybe someday it'll get back in the rotation. I think I know somebody who has it.
Okay, yeah, I like it.
Cool.
A lot of fun for me.
Cool. All right, so moving on to my first pick here. Now, this is a game that I do not own because my wife really, really dislikes it. For sort of what I already touched on briefly a little while ago, and that's that she does not like to be put on the spot in terms of like trying to lie intentionally or trying to, not get sort of bullied or pressured out of like thinking a certain way if she has like
Uh-huh.
some kind of an assumption or whatever. And anyway, the game is Sheriff of Nottingham, which
Uh-huh.
has a whole lot of lying and quite a bit of bribery as well. You can almost do anything you want in this game to an extent.
Yes.
You can kind of promise things and not really follow up with them to an extent. There's goods and money that if you say, "Hey, I'll give you this," you have to give that. But if you promise future favors, you don't necessarily have to follow through with them, which can be grounds for divorce if you play this with the wrong person. But if you've never played this game, essentially, Prince John is coming to town, and all these merchants, which you're playing as, are trying to get their wares in so that they can sell them in this busy time there, I guess, in the kingdom. And there's certain kinds of goods. There's common goods like apples and bread and cheese, which you're trying to collect, and chickens. And then there's like these there's contraband, so there's stuff you're not supposed to bring in. But then there's also these like royal goods, which are, I don't know, I guess sort of like superior versions of some of the common goods, right? Just like rye bread instead of plain bread, or golden
Yeah.
apples instead of red apples, whatever. But basically, on your turn, you're going to be either the sheriff or one of the merchants. Everybody gets to be the sheriff like twice if you play the full game. And you're trying to collect these goods, get them through, but the catch there is that the sheriff can decide to open these bags. So you're going to put all these cards in a bag and basically tell the sheriff what it is you're trying to get across the border into the town. With a couple of caveats. You can't lie about the number of cards that you're putting in the bag,
Right.
and you have to mention one type of good. So you have to say something like, there's 3 cheese in this bag. Whether or not you have 3 cheese in there is up to you. But you can always tell the truth in this game and do fairly well,
Yeah.
which is
Absolutely.
interesting. You do not have to lie. Have you ever done that strategy in this game, to your knowledge?
I have, especially because everybody's always in my game group. They're always suspicious of me. So they always think I'm lying. So I told the truth the whole game, and I just won off of that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, it's a weird mixture of that, and again, this is a very group dependent game, right? I
Yes.
feel like you need to know that everybody you're playing this game with is going to feel comfortable with the lying part, but you have to
Hmm.
like that as well. It's not necessarily that it
Yeah.
makes you feel uncomfortable, which it might in like my wife's case, but it just may not be an enjoyable game mechanic that that person just doesn't like. So I wouldn't force people to play this game like by any means.
No, definitely not. I agree. I think it's a little bit group dependent. I think that for my game group, like we get really into it. Some of us, where like we're role playing as the sheriff or
Yeah, yeah,
whatever. But some people don't really like that, but they'll
yep.
still have fun too. But I think it really shines when you get really into it, and you know.
Yeah, and it's cool because everybody does have the chance to be the sheriff, like I said. So, even if you kind of feel like, oh man, I kind of got screwed, the sheriff called me out. Because, so by the way, if let's say you're trying to get goods across and you do lie, or
Hmm.
well, if you lie or do, basically the sheriff has the option then of giving you your bag back and say, fine, you can go in, and then you can open and be like, haha, sucker, here's what I had. Um, but they can open the bag if they don't believe you. And like you said, there's where like the role playing and just this can get rowdy, this game, right? Because you'd be
Yeah.
like, whoa, 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 whoa. Before you open that bag,
Yeah.
I've got 5 apples here that I see you're trying to collect, right? Because this is like public knowledge, most of the goods that you have collected.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll throw in like $5 too, and you can bribe the sheriff to not open your bag, or pay them or bribe them to open someone else's bag
It's
that they're
bag.
kind of reluctant about. Just like I said, it's almost like a free for all, this game, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it really fun, but makes it not comfortable for some people because they don't like that
Hmm.
sort of chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. So this was the first game I thought of when you were asking me about it.
Same here, same here.
Yeah.
That's why when I sent you the email, I was like, let me put my 2 picks in there now, so that, because I always do that. I just always assume that everyone that I'm going to talk to has more games than me, so I try to always get my picks out there first and be like, this is all I got.
Okay.
So
No.
there's that. So 2 picks each so far. Neither one of us have lied, to our knowledge, but you never know because you might not know. So the next game is back to Matthew here. What is
Yeah.
your number 2 pick?
So yeah, so my number two pick was Welcome Back to the Dungeon or Welcome to the Dungeon. I'm pretty sure they're like the same thing, but I've only played Welcome Back to the Dungeon. And in this one, it's bluffing in a way. This is another one where you don't quite have to, you're not put on the spot, like you don't have to lie or
Right.
anything like that, because what you're doing is you're building a dungeon together. You're flipping over a monster card that only you know what it is, and then you're going to decide if you're going to put it into the dungeon or if you're going to keep it by you and take away one of the special abilities that the character has. So you're playing everybody's playing either as the princess, the bard, the necromancer, or the ninja in this game. And at the end of it, um, you either it's kind of like a game of chicken where it's like, all right, I'm
Yeah.
out. I'm not going to the dungeon.
Yep.
I've had enough. Or other people are they're like, no, I'm going in, baby. I know what's in there. I got this. But you're kind of bluffing because it could be that like you're plugging in really easy cards
Hmm.
to beat, trying to get into the dungeon. Meanwhile, other people are thinking, nope, I don't know what that is. I don't know
Yep.
what's in
Yep.
there.
And you might,
So
like you
it's
said, you
cool.
might know what the bad guy is and the monster, and you might
Yes,
have that, specific weapon that does a lot of damage to that
right.
one. And like there's a lot of, this is a really interesting mix of,
Yes,
deduction and push your luck and not
yeah,
a lot of communication though, like you said. So it's not a lot of like blaming you.
right. Yeah, yeah. It's not like outright lying, but it's like
Right.
subtle lying, through your actions, which is really cool. And it allows you to feel mischievous in a way, which is fun.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm the opposite. So I've never played this one. I have the original. In fact, I didn't know there was a second one until you mentioned it, and I looked it up and read about it and saw a video, and I was like, oh, you can combine these, I guess, because
Yeah.
they're just extra characters basically.
Hmm.
Um, I bought this one for specifically when I used to teach elementary school. I had briefly a board game club after school, and I thought that the kids would really take to this one, and it didn't really go over well with
I
that
know.
particular group. I just never had another chance to kind of break it out with
Hmm.
another group again. And then I kind of tried it with, I feel like, I don't know, I forget my friend's friend or someone else later, and it didn't really work as well. So it's still in my collection because it's small, doesn't take up a lot of real estate.
No, it doesn't.
Although it is from Yellow, and Yellow itself does take up quite a bit of real estate on my shelves because they have a lot of cool games.
They do.
But yeah, I would be interested to get this one back to the table. I forget it's up to 4, right? So if you combine these, you can play up to 8 players, I assume.
I don't know, actually. I mean, I would imagine maybe, but it might not be that way still. I don't know. I guess you could
It's
if you want to.
Yeah, curious.
I
No, it doesn't
suppose you would
say.
have enough components to do it just cause.
Yeah, I mean, this one has the character cards and it has a bunch of like the monsters and
Monsters, yeah.
some like equipment, right? Like weapons or
Yep.
something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got one more pick here. Now, this was the other game that I mentioned as soon as we talked about this in the email. For one reason in particular, I picked this one over something else. Um, and I think that's because I miss playing this game a lot. This is a game that doesn't get to the table that often anyway because it's best at a high player count. I believe this one does play up to 8, if I'm not mistaken. And just at 3 or 4, it just doesn't seem like it really does what it's supposed to do as well. And now that we've been in a pandemic and all this lockdown and stuff that we've been going through for the past year and a half, it obviously hasn't gotten much play then either. So, long story short, I'm really excited to get this one back to the table. This one is called Bang the Dice Game. So, Bang the Dice Game, I believe, is a dice version of a game just called Bang, which I've actually
Hmm.
never played.
I've never played that one
Um,
either.
I believe it's just a card game, and from what I understand, it was just like a lot longer than this. As usual, the dice version kind of streamlined things, I guess. But um, it's to the point now where I feel like nobody talks about the original Bang anymore.
No.
Um, I used to see people on like Board Game Geek when I first got in the hobby. I would always look at the Board Game Geek marketplace, see what people were selling, and everybody was trying to sell this Bang like bullet shaped box. Have you ever seen pictures of this thing?
No, I haven't.
It's like a giant bullet, and it was like
Okay.
I guess components went in there. I don't know, and
Yeah.
it looked really weird. Anyway, this is a much smaller version than that. A very little box, and basically all you get is a bunch of cards and some dice and a few tokens. There's 3 different characters that, well, I shouldn't say characters. There's 3 different roles that you're going to be in this
Hmm.
game. Well, 4, I guess. You're the sheriff, or some deputies of the sheriff, or you're going to be a renegade or an outlaw. So all these cards are passed out face down, and it's going to stay a secret except for the sheriff. So if you're the sheriff, you have to tell the truth right from the bat. There's no line for you here. You flip that card over, everyone knows, all right, this person is the sheriff. If you're a deputy, your goal is to try to protect the sheriff and you want to eliminate the outlaws. If you're the outlaws, you want to kill the sheriff. You don't necessarily have to kill the deputies, but if you discover who they are, you know, they may get in the way. But you
Yeah.
win if you kill the sheriff. And then there's a couple of renegades, which are I think proven to be the hardest to win as. That's
Hmm.
because you have to be the last person standing. You need everyone to die.
Yep.
It's a very it's a very morose role to be in. But that's how the different win conditions work. And essentially, you roll the dice up to 3 times, like a Yahtzee thing, so you can put some dice aside and keep rolling. With the exception of the one dynamite symbol there, I think you have to keep those. But basically, you're trying to figure out who's who through, who shoots you, who doesn't shoot you, who helps you out because you can heal. If you roll those beer mugs, you can get health back, right? Because that
Yep. 'Cause-
makes sense.
yeah.
And there's also an interesting little mechanism where there's these arrows. There's a pool of 9 arrows that stay in the middle of the table. And if you roll the arrow on the die, you have to take one of those arrow tokens. And when the last one is taken from the middle, anybody who has them in front of them suffers that much damage in health. So it's another way where you could be like, oh, I don't really want this person to know, so maybe I'll like take a couple of these hits, and just, kind of look like I'm not out to get anybody. But then you have a ton of these special abilities, and I think this game has a whole lot for being not a very big box. I don't even think this is all of them. This is all I can fit in the picture. But everyone here has got a cool name and a number of health points and an ability that's pretty cool. They're not like, oh, I get one extra thing or whatever. Like, they're pretty cool to the point where they really change the gameplay, depending on what you have. There's one character, I forget which one it is, but you don't have to. The dynamite doesn't hurt you. So if you roll 3 dynamite,
Yeah.
you normally lose health. Oh, there he is, right there. He's Blackjack. He just uses it to light his cigar. So that's how cool he is, I guess. And there's a really good mix of female characters in here as well, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. Which I appreciate. Yeah, I've only played this game once, and I remember having a blast with it. I was an outlaw, and before I even rolled the dice, people were like, "Melissa's an outlaw." So, it's just the way it goes
Yeah,
in
yeah,
my
yeah.
group. But it is a blast. Like I love rolling dice. And this one is another cool one where, again, you're not quite put on the spot. Um,
Yeah,
eh, eh, and there's a lot going on for this little game. Like you said, like the special abilities, but then the abilities of the dice. And I love the mechanism of the arrows. And when
yeah.
that last arrow comes, it's like, oh crap, okay, now I've actually taken all these hits.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one's a cool one.
I know there's an expansion for this that I kind of was on the fence on. It kind of like adds your ability to still play a little bit, even if you are eliminated. It's like a
Right,
ghost
like
character
yeah,
type
you
thing.
become a ghost. Yeah,
So this game is player elimination. So obviously that's something that some people don't like, but it's also a very quick game, so you're not going to be out for very long.
yeah,
And to your point too about not being put on the spot in this game, the I don't know, your hidden role doesn't always last that long. At some
no,
point, it
yeah,
does become a little obvious who's
yeah,
doing what. I mean, there's just no way to avoid it at some point.
yeah,
But um, it's cool because one of the symbols, or two of the symbols on the dice, actually is uh, what do you call it? Crosshairs, a one or a two.
mhm,
So when you roll those, if you roll the one, you can shoot someone that's one space to your left or to your right, and if you roll a two, you can go 2 spaces. But as people start to die, your circle gets smaller, and so
right,
those twos become like the same thing as ones. And again, it's at that point that there's kind of no hiding at some point, and it's exposed, and the game's like 15 minutes, so you're a lot of people are going to play this one more than once.
yeah,
It's fun to play as to get a different role, but it's also really fun to play as different characters,
yeah,
like we
for
said, because
sure.
those abilities are really cool. I don't remember if the rule book says this specifically, but I kind of feel like I usually deal out two and let everyone like pick one,
Oh,
just
okay.
because they do play very differently. So
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
that.
The variability is high in this one from what I remember. I need to get this one back to the table because I remember having a lot of fun with it. It just I think like what you said with pandemic and everything, it's been hard to get these sort of games out.
Yeah, yeah.
But
You almost need
I
to
would love
schedule. I
to.
want like a weekend of just like 6+ player games and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
get them all out there.
absolutely.
All right, so I think we're pretty much wrapping things up here. Before we go, though, I did want to talk a little bit about Melissa's channel, Room 51, which is on multiple platforms, right? You
Yeah.
are present on YouTube and Twitch and Instagram and Twitter. And have you made your way to TikTok yet?
No TikTok for us. We're not TikTokers.
Okay,
um,
okay.
Justin and I are not about that life.
Gotcha, gotcha.
But we are on Facebook though too.
Ah, Facebook. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So tell me the origin story of that, because I'm assuming that it sort of parallels how you started to get into creating content and taking that step away from just the gaming table and becoming a personality.
Yeah. I mean, I for a long time watched the Dice Tower, and I watched Will Wheaton's what was that called? Tabletop Gaming or something.
Uh,
Uh,
it was just called tabletop, I think.
or Tabletop.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so I watched that for a long while, but mostly the Dice Tower, and they're really the huge reason why I got into board gaming. And then I graduated from grad school, and I found that I actually have some time on my hands. And I saw a call out on Board Game Geek for writers for the Dice Tower for their news. So I was like, "Oh, that'd be cool. Let me do that." And then all of a sudden, I see a call out from Tom saying, "Hey, looking for Board Game Breakfast content creators." So I was like, "Okay, let me try." And luckily, he was like, "Sure, yeah, why not?" So I got onto Board Game Breakfast, and then he offered me another deal for doing what is now Teach the Teach,
Hmm.
some other idea I had. And I don't know why this man just keeps saying yes to me, but he does. So I was doing that. I was like, and I spoke to my brother who also sort of wanted to get into the scene a little bit.
Yeah.
And I thought, why not? Let's just do like a podcast. Let's just we'll just talk every once in a while. It'll go up and then it'll be super chill, whatever. And it grew way out of there and way out of proportion almost.
Yeah, yeah.
So we almost aren't even really podcasters anymore because a lot of times we forget to post it onto our actual podcast, but we've been mostly doing YouTube stuff.
It's hard.
And
It's hard
yeah.
when there's, and again, I'm nowhere near that range in terms of like what I'm doing myself
Hmm.
in terms of videos and stuff, but already in the little bit that I feel like I try to do now, I've already found that I lose the time to watch a lot of the content that I
Yes,
love so much.
I
Like
know.
I don't watch the Dice Tower nearly as much as I used to, and it
No.
sucks. It kills
Yeah.
me. And then I
Yeah.
meet all these new people that
Hmm.
have new other cool content,
Yep.
right? Which is amazing. I mean, I'm recording with you. I'm recording with. Well, I don't want to give it away because we'll have some, but other special guests, people that and it's so cool. But I feel like you get to talk to them and then watch their stuff. It's like
Yeah.
there's no time. I don't know what the
Yeah.
answer is. I feel like I need to dedicate one day to like not do anything of my stuff and just like watch and like binge
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
content.
It is definitely tough, especially because it's not like this is my full time. I have a full time job and I'm doing this. So it's like, when do I watch these other channels
That's
that I used
right.
to love watching, So
And you
there's
have a
that.
wedding to plan at some point, right?
I do have a wedding to plan. Yes,
Ah.
that's happening. And actually, we just closed on a condo, which is super exciting news for us.
Oh,
Yes.
congratulations. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Is
Yeah.
it
So
nearby where you already live or
it's literally around the block from where I live now.
Oh man, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
So
Ah,
grown up
cool.
life.
There you go. There you
So
go.
yeah, very exciting stuff that's going on.
That's great. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Everything's coming up Makak. I love it.
Yes.
Cool. So you can find Room 51. You can find Melissa and her brother, and a lot of times other family members are always jumping on the Twitch stream and
Yep.
things like that. So check that out for sure. And I'll put some links to those things in this one.
Thank you.
Folks, thank you for watching. Thank you, Matthew, for coming by and agreeing to chat with me for a little bit. Sometimes it feels like a big void that you yell out into, and every once in a while, some cool people answer. and you did. So
I know
thank
the
you for that.
feeling.
I really appreciate it.
Of course, yeah. Thank you again for having me. I know that void feeling. So, but
There you
when you
go.
made the call, I was like, yeah, that sounds cool.
There you go. There you go. Pay it forward. Awesome. Thanks, folks. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Board Game Dads if you haven't already. Check out all the other videos we have going on in terms of board game holiday spotlights, like National Tell the Truth Day. We're also in the middle of our summer block party, so lots of summer theme videos going up every week. Be sure to check those out as well. All right, wonderful humans. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will see you next time.
Bye.